Hello Retro Gamers, and welcome to another episode of Retro Game On. Today we're taking a look at Chase HQ, released on, well, a lot of things actually, but today we're focusing on the Game Gear version, which was released in 1991 by Taito. Its history goes all the way back to 1988 however, which is when the original arcade version was released. And from there, it was released on all manner of devices, including the ZX Spectrum, the TurboGrafx-16, and of course, the mighty Atari ST. No one ever seems to mention the Game Gear port though, at least, not to me. So, I thought it was time to finally shine some light onto it. Plus, I've only ever reviewed one Game Gear game on this channel, and the darn thing deserves more representation, even if the screen and battery life were bollocks. Before we start, a little explanation about the blatant use of an emulator. Yes, I'm using an emulator for the footage in this video, but I assure you, it's out of sheer necessity. I mean, have you ever seen the screen on the Game Gear? If so, you'll understand why. For the sake of clarity, however, I will be showing how it actually looks on the Game Gear screen every now and again in this video, so you've been warned. On the other hand, if you know a way to plug the Game Gear into a TV so they can capture it that way, then please let me know. Unless of course you're watching this in the future and a way to do it is now obvious. If that's the case, then I probably already know. Or it's so far in the future that I'm likely dead. Hello to the future people, if that is indeed the case. Anyway, let's actually review Chase HQ. You play a Porsche driving extraordinaire named Tony Gibson, who is a police officer along with his partner, Raymond Brody. They're a part of the Chase Special Investigation Department, and their job is to chase down criminals in fast cars in their own fast car. This is a dream job for some people, I'd assume, which is why it makes such an appealing idea for an arcade game. It plays like plenty of 16-bit races of the time, except instead of racing other opponents, the goal is to catch up and reach the criminal in question before the time runs out, and then run them off the road like the dogs they are. Being of late 80s and early 90s vintage however, the road system in the levels isn't exactly complicated. For the most part, you'll only be going one way down one single freeway, which if anything makes Gibson's and Brody's job quite easy. Every now and again the game will let you know that a turn is coming up by trying to induce a seizure, but even then it tells you which way to go. If for some reason you don't push the correct directional button in time though, it will just mean that it will take longer to get to the bad guy. You're given a time limit from the get-go to get to the villain, but once you approach them then this is extended. If it runs out though, then you'll lose a life. There are 3 lives, and as expected in an arcade release like this, it is game over if you lose them all, from which you can play again to try and beat your high score. Just catching up to the bad guy is only half the game however, as once you reach them, you have to ram their expensive sports car with your own. Each car takes a handful of hits to get off the road, and visually it catches on fire more and more to let you know how you're progressing. Once their $80,000 car is burnt and totaled and the streets are temporarily safe though, you progress to the next level and catch someone else because a good cop's job is never truly done. The better you do, the more points you'll earn, which can be used to purchase upgrades. These are fairly standard, ranging from a more powerful bumper for increased bumping power to a supercharger for obvious reasons. The car handling is quite good and it doesn't feel like you're dragging the car across the screen like in similar races. It was quite easy and satisfying to weave in and out between vehicles and obstacles. Even with the turbo boost activated, I didn't have many problems steering until the later stages where it understandably gets a bit trickier. There are 5 different levels, but these repeat getting more trickier every round with steeper turns and more obstacles until you run out of lives. It's a fun concept and one you can play for a while, but unfortunately I could never see myself truly committing to this game and trying to beat any world records or anything like that. The thing is, it just gets a bit same after a while as there is not enough constant action to keep me interested in the long term. I can see myself maybe coming back after a little while and replaying for maybe half an hour every 6 months or so, but that's the thing, once you've played it for half an hour, you've really seen all there is to see, even by arcade game standards. Don't get me wrong, I did like this game and could easily recommend it, but it's simply not up there with some of the other arcade heavyweights in terms of replayability. As far as graphics goes, the developers have outputted something that is expected for such an early handheld, yet I was impressed at the same time. There is a lot crammed in, and while it's obviously not the best looking port of the arcade original, it's very functional and probably better looking than it needs to be. I know I was basically sounding embarrassed for using emulations at the start of this video, but the thing is, without it, I would have been able to see about a third of the detail. The quality of the Game Gear screen actually prevents a lot of it being seen. I could hardly even read the text shown at the start of each stage. I guess this is a bit of a moot point though, since Taito likely had nothing to do with the Game Gear's development at all. The sound is pretty decent too, although some of the music choices were a bit odd. Some of it fits in because it's exciting and fast paced, which is what you might expect of a game about police chases. On the other hand though, some of it is quite slow and melodic. These tracks aren't exactly terrible musically, but they just simply don't fit in. They sound like what you'd expect to find in a platformer or a cutesy RPG maybe. Chase HQ scores points for its original concept, and this port's also quite faithful to the arcade original when you consider the hardware constraints. Even though I did get a bit bored of it after a while, this doesn't necessarily mean that you will too. It's a fun game to play regardless, and the sheer amount of systems that it was released on probably means you own something that can play it. Hello retro gamers, and thank you so much for watching. I've written about a few things on retrogameon.com recently that some of you might like reading. In the latest post, I find the remains of an old internet gaming cafe in Chinatown of my local city and try to determine its origins, and in a separate post I check out the newest retro gaming store to open near me, which is called Retro Collect. If you want to read those or 250 other odd posts, you can find my website either by clicking the annotation on screen or by following the link in the description box down below. That's all for today though. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.